you need to have a social media to promote your podcast. Most of the time, people do not go into a podcast app searching for specific topics or anything. Once in a while, they do. Yes, they do. I will give you that. But most of the time, I know for me, I find podcasts through social media, especially Instagram. When you share your audiogram or your reel or something from your podcast, if I find it intriguing, then I go over to my podcast app and search for your podcast. So I think social media is huge in promoting your podcast and that you definitely need to use it to get more listeners. So let's talk about what you can do on social media to get more listeners to your podcast. Now, most of these are going to be for Instagram because that's my main focus when I do my promotion, but you can adapt this to Facebook or TikTok or wherever you promote your podcast, LinkedIn. You can repurpose these for all of them, every single account. If you have a bunch of social media accounts, go for it. Repurpose it everywhere. So my favorite thing to do is to create either an audiogram or a reel. Now, an audiogram is where you take a clip of your podcast and put it over a graphic so that on Instagram, when it pops up, they see the graphic and they can hear a section of your podcast. Now, you want to take a clip that is intriguing, that makes them want to listen, that maybe gives them some tips or something of value in that audiogram, but also leaves them wanting more. And I know that can be hard to do, but take like a juicy part of your podcast episode and use that as a clip. Or if you video record it, use it as a reel. Take that and use that as a reel. I think reels are amazing. I video record all my podcasts. I highly suggest you do, even if you don't use the video, just so you can take a reel of it. Because when people can see your face too, they really connect more. And reels, of course, do amazing. And you can repurpose that reel for TikTok. So definitely, I would say that would be, if you do anything else for promoting your podcast, that is definitely one of the main ones I would do, is either an audiogram or a reel. You can also create a quote graphic. Take a quote from your podcast, make a pretty graphic in Canva of it, and put that up. You can transcribe your audio. I use a program called Descript to transcribe my audio. And then I take a section of what I said and I use that as captions, maybe with a photo of me, and use that as a caption on there and then tell them to go listen for more. You can also take that transcription, create a newsletter, create sections or all the tips that you had and make it a newsletter, send it out to your email list to promote your podcast episode. Talk about it in your stories. Get on the day that it comes out and say, hey, this is my podcast episode. This is what it's about. Go listen and put the link in your stories. You can now put the link in your stories. So put it right in your stories. And here's a tip for the links. Don't just put Apple. Okay. I'm an Android user. I hate iPhones. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this because people are diehard iPhone people. I do not like iPhones. I had an iPhone for 2 years and hated it every second of it. I'm so good. I got a Google Pro now. I love my Google Pro. Oh my gosh. But so not everybody has Apple. And when you just put the Apple link, you are missing out on a bunch of listeners. So you can go to its pod.link and that will make it so that it pops up and then they can pick the platform that they want to listen to your podcast on. So that opens it up to more people who don't necessarily have iPhones. If you have guests in your podcast, please make sure that you are tagging them in the post. You are giving them anything that they can share with their audience too, because leveraging other people's audiences on social media is going to be so impactful. That is how you can get more listeners. When their audience hears that, oh, they were a guest on this podcast, they're going to want to go listen to that podcast. So make sure that you are tagging them as a collaborator or tagging them in stories, giving them the posts or the reels, the audiograms to share with their audience too, because that is a great way to get more people into your world. But the main point is you need to be using social media to promote your podcast. You can't just record an episode and tons of people are going to come listen to it. It's not going to happen. I always say, if you think you're talking about your podcast too much, talk about it a little bit more. People need to hear things like 7 to 10 times, is it, before they actually registers and they go and take action on it. So don't just promote it the day that it comes out. Promote it all week long until the next episode comes out. If somebody asks you a question and you did an episode on it, say, hey, I did this episode. This will really help you, and lead them to the episodes. These are great ways to answer people's questions too, especially if you did a whole episode talking about it, instead of having to type it out or answer it again. Get creative and just use your podcast any way you can, and do promotion any way that you can on any social media platform that you use, because the more people who hear about it, the more they can go and listen to it.